Welcome to the DMF. I am your host, Justin Yance. Today, my guest is Adrienne Stern, CSA. She is a casting director. Enjoy. Okay, today I have a special guest with me. I have Adrienne Stern of Adrienne Stern Casting. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Good to meet you, Justin. Thanks for
It's
having me here today.
it's great to meet you. I'm excited. Now, the first thing I noticed from doing all my research is you're somebody that was always kind of a film fan. Like you always kind of wanted to be in the business and kind of like found your way into it. In previous interviews, you talked about how you went to the opening day of Star Wars. So was that something that your family kind of instilled in you, or were you just like that, the one in the family that loved film? Or
I definitely grew up in a home where film was probably another person in our home. My parents, and it's still to this day. I mean, if I call them, they're telling me about the films that they saw and did I see this film and that film. And so it wasn't unusual for every weekend for us to watch a couple of films or go see a couple of films at a theater. There's a lot of excitement when a new film came out, especially some of the bigger films. You mentioned Star Wars, Planet of the Apes. I just remember as a kid, my father, saying that's what we're going to do today. But I definitely, enjoyed all types of films and foreign films. And I remember that there were a lot of these sort of, I guess I want to call them independent films, and they were playing at these theaters downtown. And I think that we would go see them, and sometimes they'd be a little over my head. But I grew up in a house with a love of film, and I think that sort of propelled the career for me, always being interested and intrigued by the entertainment industry, but not really having like a pinpoint and saying, oh, this is the career for me, or I knew this career. I mean, I do go back, and I will say that when I was in elementary school, there was another student who I was very friendly with. And I think that his dad, if I'm putting the pieces together, had been an agent at William Morris. And I remember he
oh
used
wow.
to say to me, let's get headshots and go into the city with our headshots and be actors. And I just always remember the excitement of hearing his stories, even though I really didn't even know anything about it, because honestly, I think I was friends with him like from second grade to 12th grade, on and off through the years, because you're friends
Yeah.
with kids depending on where you land with them in classes and stuff. But I do remember that, and I remember thinking if it weren't for him, I don't know that I'd know what William Morris was. And so that was always in my head, that there was this agency world out there, but it's not a world that I ever went down. And I sort of somehow found casting, and it somehow found me. And, I've really enjoyed the path that I've been down.
What was that? I have to ask you, what was it like seeing Star Wars on opening day? Was that
Uh,
like,
I,
did you?
I I will tell you the thing that was most exciting. Okay, first off, it was on 86th Street on the Upper East Side.
Hmm.
I remember getting in line, and there were hundreds of people, and I think we must have gotten there at a good enough time to get in. But the nice thing about it is they handed everybody a button that said, "May the force be with you." And today I still have that
Wow.
button. Yes. And so,
Wow.
as a kid, that was so exciting to get. And I loved it. I mean, I
Yeah.
definitely liked sci-fi, and it was exciting to watch. So I was, I'll use the word, I was mesmerized by, the whole
Yeah.
film.
I mean, yeah, people talk about that. And they're like the closest thing anything's come to like that craze that Star Wars brought was like probably like the end of the Marvel movies a couple of years ago, where like that excitement
Right,
just kind of
right,
built to that
right.
point. So yeah, I'm always fascinated. I'm a big movie guy, so I love. When I heard that, I was like, oh, I can ask her about Star Wars.
Oh, terrific.
So one of the things I was interested, what school did you go to? Because you said you graduated school before you took a corporate job.
I did, just for a short period of time. I went to school in Ohio, to Ohio State. And
Hmm.
I just never really advertised any of my college stuff. Just, I don't know why. Maybe I think just that way people from, undergrads don't reach out and say, oh, I went to the school. Not that I,
Yeah.
listen, I love young actors and I help young actors, and I run an internship in my office for college students getting credit that want to be casting directors. And I usually bring
Mhm.
4 people in every semester, but I just don't advertise where I went or anything. But I'm still very close friends with a lot of my
Yeah.
college friends, and I definitely enjoyed it. But I had gone down a little corporate path prior. I don't really know why. I really, sometimes you kind of think you're going to do one thing and then somehow you just kind of land in somewhere else. And it took me like 2 years before I got my footing and got into the world of casting. And I got into the
Yeah.
world of casting because I did an internship. Because at that internship, I saw an opportunity. I worked very hard. It was not uncommon for me to be in the office till 11 o'clock at night, just looking at headshots, knowing who people were. And I just was in the right place at the right time, that they approached me after a month and said, oh, and by the way, there was another person who worked here in the casting department and they're moving to LA, and would you like to be on payroll and work here? And I was like, yes, I'll do it. So
Hmm.
that's how I got into casting, by doing an internship. That's why I feel it's very important for anybody who wants to get into the entertainment industry. And I'm not talking about actors, because that's a slightly and bigger and different path. But if you want to work in any aspect of the entertainment industry, and you are, a student now, you're in high school, you're in college, try and get as many internships as possible. Figure out where you belong, because I often say when I interview young people who want to work in casting, I say there's 2 types of people out there in the entertainment industry. There are those who want to be at a desk, and there are those who want to be on set. It doesn't mean that you can't be both, but if you realize you have a love for being on set, then don't stick yourself on a computer all day. You still might be on that computer all day on the set, but at least you're outside in this environment. Because, the world has changed, and I work from home now, and I'm not in any type of office environment. For most of my career, I would say that I traveled to different companies, that I was the key casting person on their film or television series or whatever it might have been at that time. And they provide office space for you. And so now all of a sudden you're in an environment with a lot of other people. There's camaraderie, there's drinks after work. Working at ABC, they give you the pass, you get to eat in the lunchroom. There's like a lot of little perks. Working from home, the perk is just me motivating myself. I have a full-time assistant. She lives in Philadelphia, and she's Zooming with me all day long. And that's how I do it. And I've had other assistants that have lived in LA and other places around the country. Now, given if we were in an office environment again, perhaps I would have somebody coming in all day. But none of my films demand that we need to be in any type of office setting anymore. The actors are all strictly self-taping or reels, and the films are shooting all over the world and all over the country. So I don't really, see a need at this point to have any type of office space. So it is just myself
Yeah.
working from home. So
It's a
that
good
is
cost
also,
cutting.
but one of the reasons I enjoy going to these film screenings and networking events in the industry is because that is my extended opportunity to sort of finish up, tuck up my day and go out and, meet with friends and meet new people that, obviously I'm not having that opportunity during the day anymore.
Now, is that something that came from the pandemic, the working at home
I would say that
aspect?
a lot of my clients actually prefer to have actors self-tape and watch them and then either set up a meeting or Zoom with them. My clients, again, are all over the world. So that's, and they have demands. Many of my clients are directing other things and, running companies, and they just would prefer it this way than sitting in the audition process day in and day out. And believe me, I've spent my whole life sitting in an audition room. And I really, I feel bad for talent, because today's talent doesn't get to know me. When you walk into an audition room and I start a rapport with you and I work with you and then I bring you in again and again, it's just sort of like a camaraderie that happens. And it's funny, even last night at the premiere, at the cocktail party after a reception, I'd been there, maybe a little bit. And then all of a sudden I saw an actress that I've cast in a few things. She was with some other people I knew. we reminisced how we used to grab a coffee, how we've been at parties together. And, it was just nice to catch up and see her again. And she missed, the opportunity to come into the audition room, because that's where you get to prove your chops. And it's a keen eye today when actors are self-taping and you're watching it online, on the services that we use. You really have to say, what is going on here? Is this person right for what I'm doing? Are they right for another role? Is there another project that I might need them for? Do I need to give them an adjustment? So there are a lot of things going on that, I try to give a bit more when I am spending time watching self-tape, so that we don't miss out on anybody that might be, a total gem in many ways.
And also you got to be careful because I mean, I've heard from casting directors, they've cast somebody and they show up on set and it's the first time they've been on set and they just freeze because they're not, they've never been
It
used to it,
depends. I mean, I don't think in the process of casting, especially if it's somebody that, let's just say, is a little bit more green than another actor, I definitely would say that my director is going to either meet them in person or do some Zoom workshops with them. And so I feel like for me, I actually haven't heard that, maybe perhaps on something else,
Mm,
but I've had a very good experience with the Zooms.
that's good. Now you mentioned headshots, looking at headshots all every day. Do you I'm sure when you see headshots, it just takes you like a split second to just scroll through. Is
Well,
that, do you have that?
the talent and their agents submit on our service that we use, that, generally all the casting agents use. And, my job is to go through them. Obviously, I'm going to recognize people. There might be people I've cast before, people I've auditioned before, somebody I'm familiar with their work. So I don't really need to spend a whole lot of time on somebody's headshot. But if there's somebody new, what I really love is I love when somebody has the slate. So they say, hi, I'm Adrienne Stern, or I can
Yeah.
watch the reel as well. Sometimes when I'm going through them, I will Google the person to see what they look like when they're not in a headshot. I do a lot of beauty campaigns and branding campaigns and commercials, and it's very
Mm,
important that I can go a little beyond that and make sure that that person is exactly what we're looking for. Example, I had cast a film called Lost Nation, and we shot up in Nantucket in March, April. And it was a really big undertaking for my director, Jay Craven, and I give him a lot of credit. He takes on these huge monumental films, and they just didn't get to shoot everything. And he recently contacted me and said, we need to do a pickup week. We need an Indigenous actor. And so, I put it out on the breakdown, and I specifically with my staff, we went through each and every resume and we Googled each and every person to make sure they truly were an Indigenous actor. And when we
mm,
had them self-tape, we asked them to tell us what tribe they're a member or anything else they want to share with us, because I felt that it's a biopic and it's, we wanted to stick with the story, and it wouldn't, we were casting an Indigenous actor and that's what I was looking for. And that's something I do want to say to talent out there. I go down the path that is required for the project. So if my client says to me they need certain, ethnicity or whatnot, that's what I'm looking for. We're not going to change it, especially in a story that's a biopic or a family pick. So do keep that in mind. Actors really should, when submitting, it would be best to hold off submitting for something that you're really not right for. And I see it a lot, and it's a little
yeah.
it's a little disheartening for me personally when I'm going through the submissions and somebody's clearly not what we're looking for. It's like, don't submit.
Yeah.
It's not going to change anything.
Yeah, don't submit for the 80-year-old man if you're
Correct. If
20.
you're
If you're
30,
20,
right,
yeah.
right.
Oh no, I can do it. It's like, no,
Yeah.
we're not go. There's too much makeup to go through to do all that. Um, because I'm interested because it sounds like, yeah, you're very versatile. So you don't have like, would you say you kind of have a system of how you approach casting when you get a project? Do you or does it change every time? Like I'm kind of gathering from what you've said.
Well, I primarily cast feature films, so I'll walk you through the process for me. I'm going to say that 70% of the films that I cast, I get offered from clients that I've already worked for, or they've seen a film that I've cast, or they've met me along the way. Another 30% I'm interviewing for. So I'm no different than an actor. I have to go out there and sell myself. And, some of them you get, some of them you don't get. It is what it is. But my main number one thing is that I want to read the script. I'm not going to accept a job unless I read the script, and then I set up a meeting with whomever, whether it's the writer, directors, the producers, and we're going to have a lengthy discussion about that story and what the needs of that project are. And we're also going to go through many different scenarios. Where are we shooting? When we shooting? What's our budget? What's your reach? What do you want to what type of actors are you expecting in this film? And, what are you expecting of me? Because if you're realistic, we'll do it. If you're unrealistic, we're not going to do it. And I'm not going to pretend that we're going to do it. And so I really need to hear from them what it is that they think that this film is going to, attract. And we go through that and we either figure out if this is possible, if it's not possible. It's a creative aspect. Everybody should work as a team together. Yes, I know my path is to be the presenter, to find the talent, to have the relationship at the agents and the management companies, and then to share with them who is available. Very open to any ideas that they might have as well. Happy to dig in and see who's available, who's not available. Happy to hear from the agents and managers who's available. I do open it up sometimes past what's called the breakdown, where the agents and managers submit. If there's specific roles I want to go beyond the breakdown, I'll put that on the Actors Access, specifically when I'm doing young people roles, or something that I just might not be finding among the agents, or I just want to open it up a bit. So it's definitely sort of a organized chaos in some ways, because you could focus, maybe you have 6 lead roles and then 4, 10 additional roles. You're focusing on these lead roles first. And what I've learned in casting is, if you have 6 roles, 4 of them are going to be bing bang boom, you got the actors and you're done. You're always going to have a little bit of a difficult time with a role or two. Somebody drops out, you're not finding what you're looking for, people are passing, you just have to keep going down the path. So you always want to stack your leads and your supporting first, and then you get to your other roles. The only thing also you want to think about when you're casting is that what's your shooting schedule. So if there are smaller roles that are shooting in the week 1, then you need to make sure those roles are been cast. And if you're still casting while the film is shooting, then the roles that are shooting later in the film, you can solve that a little bit later. So you just have to be super, super organized on your game, be able to make sure that all balls are rolling, not wait for anything, because at the end of the day, you need to have those actors on that set. And if somebody doesn't work out, there's got to be 2 or 3 other actors that the director has already taken a look at or the producers have approved. And so you can, make an offer to those actors, or re-meet them, or re-auditioning, or whatever it is you need to do. So it's a constant flow. And I always say, your film is not cast till you wrap on the last day, because you never know what's going to happen. I mean, I've had films shoot where we had a film shoot years ago, and the actor who wrapped themselves out will remain nameless, but basically the film's called Snipes. It was Zoe Saldana's first film. It's a great cast. It's Nellie, Zoe Saldana, Dean Winters, Frank Vincent, trying to think who else was in it. Just a lot of great people. And we cast somebody who came and shot for 2 days and then just never showed up again. And, the director said to me, we're going to have to find a replacement. And I had cast another actor on a number of occasions. And I said, I think this actor would be great. And we got this actor to Philadelphia, and they loved him, and he was great, So that's what happened. But, that's what I'm saying. Like, you never know what's going to happen in the process. I just had a film shoot in LA, and one of the lead roles, the actor had gone horseback riding the day before the shoot, and did not get to shoot the film because got kicked by the horse. So we had to do a replacement casting right away. The director had already met with other actors and made a quick choice, and the other actor was on set literally, that next day. So
Yeah.
you always want to make sure that you have other people that can jump into things. And that's where the relationship with the agents and managers come into play also, because when I'm casting, I need to have those conversations like, did we miss anybody who's available, or this role opened up again? That happens very often. Like I had a film shoot last summer, and it was my second film with the director, and he had pushed a shoot. So by the time he pushed a shoot, one of our lead actors was no longer available for different reasons. And so we had to find a replacement casting. And, we went out there and searched again to see if, sometimes with casting, when things get pushed to different dates, new people become available. So sometimes you do want to do like another little, search and look and whatnot. So that's why I'm saying, you're never not thinking about who's that actor that's going to, show up on that set. Because sometimes it's not the actor you originally started off with.
Just to follow up a little bit, that actor who just checked himself out, was nobody able to reach him and tell him, we need you back there?
It's a pretty well-known person, I'll say, and I
Yeah.
don't think, I think that,
Yeah.
they made themselves unavailable, and that's the end of it.
Okay.
This is years
Okay, yeah.
ago, and that's it.
Yeah.
They didn't care for
Yeah.
whatever reason. They had something else to do, and they just didn't care.
But it sounds like you like to have that relationship with the director, like knowing what he's looking for.
Absolutely. Right. My rapport with my director is something that I think is one of the most valuable aspects of casting. Now, when you're working sometimes on a larger film, it's not really the director that you're dealing with, but the producers that you're dealing with. Each project is different.
Yeah.
And, it's sort of, what the relationship is that they decided and how it's set up. Because remember, sometimes it's a director that wrote the script, and so they're also producing it, so they're making the decisions. Other times it's a director for hire with a production company, and it's the producers that are sort of with the director, but they're making the decision. So each project is different, or it's just a group of people all together being cohesive and figuring out what the puzzle piece for each role is and who would be best suited for each role. So again, and you said this earlier, every single project I work on is different. I have worked on projects where they're like, we have 2 days, we're shooting in 2 days, and we just want to cast the best actors. We're going to have auditions or whatnot, or present to us 10 people for each role. I've on films where it's like, we want, recognizable name talent for each and every role. Let's get to work, roll up our sleeves, and let's find these people. I have been on films where, they start off in that, and then they're not getting what they want. And then they're like, oh, let's just go with these really great actors that auditioned, or we watched the reel, we know them from this or that. So again, every situation is different. And I have to be able to offer up every single thing so that you never know where you're going to land. And it,
Yeah.
it's a lot of balls in the air.
Has that been a point of contention with directors, is not allowing you to read the script?
No, I read every script. I mean, the only time you don't read a script is when you're on like some type of series and, they don't even have it written yet, and you're just dealing with whatever sides they give you. And that's normal and that's fine. But in the world of independent film, it's really imperative to read a script. I don't want any surprises that I wouldn't know about. When I'm reading a script in today's world, I want to make sure that everybody's represented the way they should be represented. I want to make sure if there's any type of nudity or lovemaking or a subject matter that I might not be comfortable with, or I feel not comfortable going out to agents and managers and putting my name on it. So I don't want to say yes to something and then it's not something that I professionally feel would be to my advantage to cast. So I do turn down a lot of projects, but in today's casting, when you're reading these scripts, there is nudity. And nudity is something that an actor has to say, am I comfortable or not? But is that nudity necessary? And what is that nudity? And how are we going to deal with it on set? It is advised to hire an intimacy coordinator who will work with the team, the director, to figure out, and the actors to figure out how they're going to approach the scene. So even for me in the beginning, when I'm working on something like that, I already have to have that conversation with my director. How are you approaching this and what are we presenting? And when you have a chance to meet with the actors, I've already presented that there is going to be this level of nudity or lovemaking or whatever it is. But when you do meet with the actor, I want you to have that conversation as well, because that actor needs to hear it from you, what your thoughts are. And some actors will be comfortable with it and others will say, you know what, I thought it out and this just isn't the right situation for me, but thank you for considering me. And like I'll tell you a story. I had what's the name of the film now? It's Josh Sugarman's film. Look it up quickly for me. It's like my mind is
Josh
like
Sugarman.
so this was a very, I know it's on the tip of my tongue. This film was a very sought after script. People loved the script. Actors wanted to be in this film. Ryan Eagle ended up being the lead in the film. And obviously he's gone on to great things. And I had cast him in Lucky Them years later. And the female lead was a character named Quinn. And in the script, she has a scene where she does, where you hold on to somebody's feet and they're walking with their hands. Do you know what I'm talking about? I think they call it like a wheelbarrow or something.
Yeah,
but
I know exactly.
Okay, right. So, but she's naked, okay, on top. And so everybody loved this script. And even though Josh said they'll wear some type of prosthetic thing on top of their breasts, it was just an uncomfortable situation for a lot of actors. And we had pass after pass after pass. And then we kind of said, what is going on here? We're not getting any of these American actors. So we said, let's look outside of that. And we went with an actor who was also a model, who was used to having nudity because they'd modeled, and whatnot. And it just solved it for us. So, sometimes you could have a really great script, but there's like an aspect of it that somebody's just not comfortable with. Like when I cast The Believer, the female lead in that, there was nudity. Ryan Gosling's the lead. And, we had gone with Summer Phoenix and she didn't want to do the nudity, but then, she felt comfortable and went for it. So that's what happens basically.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting. Getting back to the auditioning room. So you've basically said this, you like to work with the actor in the room. What are some of the things that you wish you could do with the actor in the room that you can't really do with a Zoom or a Skype?
Right.
Something...
I mean, I understand what you're saying. It's just when an actor walks into the room and you see something in them, you can give them an adjustment. Either it works or it doesn't work. You could also say to them, that was wonderful, but would you mind looking at this other role? And then they go outside and come back in. We switch them. Sometimes on callbacks, we'll tell the actors, you're going to come in, you're going to be reading for both lead roles. We're going to be mixing and matching until we find that pair that go together. So plan on staying for, an hour and a half to 2 hours. And, you're going to read with 10 actors and, we'll dismiss people as we figure out they're not what we're looking for that particular project. But I definitely have, not that ability the way I used to. But again, I think that what's really missing is just that, like, sort of getting to know somebody, hi, how are you? It's all that little stuff, because when actors are self-taping, they're just pressing a button and sending it in, and then I'm watching it. I'm not speaking with them. Then let's just say, somebody auditioned and I thought that, they played the role in just too, they were too uptight and this character needs to be a little jovial and stuff. So we'll go back to the actor and we'll say, we really thought you did a great job. However, could we see another take where you are, in this direction instead? And that's why I'm going to bring up something very important to talent, that when you're receiving your invitation to audition, basically there's going to be a letter and it's going to tell you everything they're looking for. But one of the things most important is that there's going to be a deadline, because that deadline needs to be met. Now, just because I give a deadline doesn't mean that my director's not knocking on the door saying, where are the audition tapes? We really want to get that cast. So don't hesitate. Just get your audition in right away for many reasons. A, my director might want to see them. And by 1 o'clock, even though the deadline's 5 o'clock, maybe 30 out of 60 people sent it in, and I went through it, and there were 30 great, there were 10 great people, and the director's wowed by somebody. So get it in right away. It also gives me a chance to go through it and go back to you and say, I thought you were great, but let's do it again and get that into me right away. Or would you mind switching to a different character? So give that casting director some chance to view your audition and come back to you with what something else is needed, because my job is to get you the part. My job is to help move you forward. One of the things that an actor forgets is that I'm going to say something about me. I never rush a director. I mean, we want to find the right person spot on. So if it takes a lot longer on one role, it just takes a lot longer and we'll keep going. However, when we feel like we found those people, we want to, our job is done. The sooner I cast something, the sooner I'm done with my job. That's how I have to look at it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's something that a lot of actors wish. I think you wish that actors knew when they came into the room, that
Right.
Yeah. Do you talk a little bit about how casting has changed in the pandemic? Has that, do you see it ever going back to the way it was, where you would go in the room, or do you think it's going to be self-tape, Zoom, and then maybe a screen test?
I think it's going to be a combination of things. It really depends on who the client is. I mean, I'm well aware that in the theater world and Broadway and off Broadway, they're doing, live auditions.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of auditions on. They might do a round on tape first and then invite the talent in. I don't know so much about film and television, because even for me, I had a film shoot in Toronto this year. Everybody taped. I had a film shoot in Kentucky. Everybody taped or Zoomed. So the directors aren't even in New York or LA. They're elsewhere themselves. And so unless they make the decision, okay, great, I'm going to fly in and meet the talent, then, I really don't know. Again, I don't mind it this way. So I don't have any answer if it's going to go back or not. All I know is that, have your A game on, no matter if it's an in-person audition or, a self-tape. Be ready and, get that audition in and, just be happy that they picked you. I mean, if I put a breakdown out, it's nothing for me to have 1,000 to 1,500 people submitted for a role, and sorting through that is a lengthy process. I usually get up early, make some coffee, and just sit on my computer and weed through it and see what's there. Sometimes it's great and it's like a gold mine. Other times you're not seeing what you're looking for at all.
Yeah, no, it's, I don't think people realize the amount of work that the casting director has to do when they get these submissions. Like you said, it could be 1,000.
It's a lot of work. A lot of work.
5,000. And it's kind of your job to weave through them, find out which ones we're going to be asked to submit on tape, and then go through them and then pick 5 or so for the director and be like, here we are.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a lot of work, and people don't realize that, it's hours and hours sometimes. And, sometimes you just have to curtail your personal and social life. I mean, there are days where I'm just like, okay, I'm going to spend 4 hours looking at all the submissions that came in. That way, Monday, we can get everybody's, invite out and move it forward. And, that's fine. That's how life works. And I take advantage of times that are not as busy.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Well, you kind of already answered that. How do you balance life with casting? You basically just, I guess, take it one day at a time.
It depends on the project. Some projects are deadline driven and you're, working till 10, 11 at night. You got to get it going. Other projects are stretched out and, you're really just putting in a day's work, just like everybody else. Many of the people you're working with are busy on the weekends on a Saturday and Sunday. I always make myself available to my clients. I also know that if a project's shooting on a Monday and there's a problem on a Friday, I'm going to be available all weekend to solve that. And that happens quite often. I remember there was a year where every Friday, I had a lot of stuff shooting every Friday night. Somebody would drop out and we'd have to do replacement casting on a Monday. And that's just it. You know, that's why I love, emails, because it's like, okay, who's available, who's around, great, we'll get them in, we'll send you a deal memo Monday morning and they'll show up on set and whatnot. So I'm just used to it. And I definitely take advantage of my downtime to the best of my ability.
Yeah. Yeah. What casting directors do you admire, past or present? I'm curious.
Oh my gosh. I mean, honestly, there was a documentary about casting and, there's so many great people that were represented in it. And, obviously it's all mostly about Lynn Stallmaster, but if it wasn't for the path that they went down, many of us, today wouldn't even have this opportunity. As far as, who I admire, I think I admire so many people out there for being courageous and being able to, go out there and find terrific talent. And, these people are very humble about it. When you hear an actor thank a casting director, I think that's probably the greatest gift that they can give that casting director, that, if it wasn't for that person reaching out, moving them forward, pushing them, then, they might not be where they are today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Is there anybody specific? I mean, you mentioned the one, I think that movie is called Casted By. I think it was
Yes, and I'm actually in it.
HBO.
Right, that's Tom Donahue and Alon
You
Alberdola,
are?
I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm actually in it. People they know my voice and they're like, were you in that? Like, I got that so many times because I didn't put my credit. So they go into a modern day casting and that's my office. And, I remember that day so well because the actors had to sign a release if they would want to be in it. And there were actors that didn't want to sign the release and then said to me afterwards, like a year or two, I was there that day. I should have signed it. I would have been in the, in the film. Listen, there's so many wonderful people out there and there are people who've given me opportunities in my career, but too many people to name. How's that answer for you?
Okay. Is there somebody that specifically mentored you in casting that you kind of looked to?
Well, I would say I wouldn't have the career I have today if it wasn't for a few people in my who helped me out. I'm thankful to Doug Abel because he gave me my first opportunity.
Yeah.
It was him that I had my internship with that then turned into a full-time position. I was thankful to a director who is no longer with us named Andre Arnaud. It was he that I met at the Vineyard Theater who brought me over to another theater. While I was at that theater, I met a director named Shirley Kaplan, who then moved me over to Ensemble Studio Theater. So I really have had a lot of good fortune with some great people that definitely connected with me and thought I would be an asset to work with. And through them, I was able to move my career along. And it was at Ensemble Studio Theater. I started there in 1992, and I feel like by 93, the independent film industry was starting to just like bubble over in New York, and films were starting to happen. And there were a lot of playwrights and directors there who would say, hey, we're going to make this film. Would you like to work on it with us? And I'd be like, sure. So I was like casting the theater stuff during the day and doing the film stuff. I'm a multitasker. I could do 10 things at once. So for me, it was very easy to do everything. That's just how my brain works. And I got very fortunate at that theater without knowing, because there was a young woman who was an intern there. And I was very nice to her because that's who I am. And she went on to intern at another company, a film company. And I got a phone call from the producers that she recommended me and would I come over and meet with them. And they sent me this script, because remember, there were no computers back then. So you'd get like a script delivered to you. And I read the script and I was like, oh, this is great. And it has a name actor already attached. So I go over, I remember it was like a snowy, blistery day. I go over to their office to meet them and the director never shows up, not a phone call, nothing, right? And I'm like, oh, there's my chance to cast this film. And like a month goes by and they call me up and they say, we're so sorry about what happened. The director was asleep in bed with the flu or whatever, but you can have the job. So anyway, I was very lucky. I got that job. The film was called Girls Town with Lily Taylor, and we won Sundance. So I was very, very lucky. And then once you get one film like that, you're sort of on the map, and then other projects just start to come your way. People you meet along the line offer you a script. Sometimes that project doesn't happen, but they've connected you with the right people who are about to do something else, and you're just sitting in the right place at the right time. I will say that the casting world has, erupted in the sense that when I was in casting in the beginning, there just weren't as many casting directors as there are today. It's become a hot career, and I understand why. It's a lot of fun. Yes, we said earlier, it's a lot of work, and you really, if there's something for anybody thinking about casting, you have to have the ability to remember people. You have to have the ability to understand stories and scripts, but you also have to have a business head, and you have to navigate speaking with directors, writers, producers, agents, managers. There's a lot that goes into it. It's not for everybody. It's for a lot of people, but not for everybody. So I often say that, but if you can't remember names and faces, then I would not recommend going into casting, because when you go out and you're about, or you just have to know people, people's names. And it's something I'm going to say, and honorably so. My name is Adrienne. I have spent many of my years being called Andrienne and Andrea, and I'm like, well, that's not my name. So for me, it's very important. And anyone who works in my office, I say, when you're speaking with people and you're asking about an actor or mentioning, or you're greeting an actor, make sure you pronounce their name correctly. And also you can even say, Justin, how do you say your name? Am I pronouncing it correctly? There's nothing wrong with saying that to somebody. Yeah. Also, when you're dealing with like a more well-known actor and you have to call their agent, go online on YouTube, see how Jimmy Fallon introduced that actor so that you say their name correctly. You don't call that agent up and say the wrong name, because sometimes it's embarrassing. You're a professional, so you should have your game plan down.
I've done the same thing. I would sit and watch an interview, be like, did they say the name? Did they say the
right?
Oh, they said the name. There we go. Right. Yeah.
Right.
And then sometimes I've interviewed like French people, and it's like, how do you still say your name?
Right. That's perfectly okay.
Yeah, you have to. I want to talk about some of the specific projects that you casted that that I was found. Broken English with
Broken English. That's a favorite of everybody's.
Parker Posey. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
I remember when I think it came to like HD Net. They had like a deal with I think it was Magnolia Pictures that had something to do with that.
Sony
film.
Pictures.
Sony Pictures.
Yeah, they
might have been
had
Sony
distributed
Pictures.
that. Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
and so I remember seeing that. What was that project like?
Oh my gosh, was that fun to work with Zoe Cassavetes. First off, she comes from Hollywood royalty, and the script was amazing. I felt honored to, have the opportunity to work on it. Obviously, her mom is in the film, Jenna Rollins. And so, it was a dream come true, because that's one of my favorite films in the world, Gloria, with Jenna Rollins. So to work with her and have that opportunity, and, there were so many wonderfully talented actors that wanted to be in the film. I had a previous, I had cast Justin Theroux in a couple of other films previously. I'd met him in Ensemble Studio Theater. I know I cast him in a play there, The Cask of Amontillado, or some name like that, based on like an Edgar Allan Poe or something. And then I had done Dream House with him, and I did Ed Vilga's film with him. I forget the name of that one, but with Paul Sorvino. And that was a great cast. And then, so when this came along and, we were looking for that heartthrob, Justin was, sort of a great choice. And obviously we have Parker, and we have Drea De Matteo, and Melville Papole. And, it's just a terrific, tremendous, cast of amazing, wonderfully talented people.
Did you get to work at all with Parker Posey when you were casting?
I think, if I recall, we were looking for somebody who, could carry the film. And her name was on the list. I believe we made her an offer, and Zoe probably, had a lunch or a meeting with her or whatever.
Mm.
And, she got cast. I did meet her many times on set. We had a lot of parties. I remember it was a very festive
Yeah.
film, I'll call it. So there was a lot of opportunity to socialize on that film.
Yeah, she seems like somebody who's very good at like being thrown things and just going with it. I don't
She's
know
a
that.
tremendously gifted actor. We were lucky,
Yeah.
very fortunate. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I can definitely see that. Tell me a little bit. I have to ask this. Um, that 70s show you cast
Oh,
in
yeah.
in the New York, Ashton Kutcher. What was that? Was that the only
Sure. I'm going to
person?
tell you the whole story.
Yeah, yeah.
No, I was, I was a younger casting director then, and it wasn't uncommon for a network to hire you for 3 or 4 pilots. So, all of a sudden you'd get 3 or 4 pilots and you would do what's called the New York casting. So you're just sitting in your audition room all day long, taping people. That's simply what you're doing, because they're not in New York. And then those were long days, because once you're done, I had a system where, remember, we're doing it on VHS then, again, no computers, but I had this system where I knew how to like tape it on 2 VHSs at the same time. And then the minute we were done, FedEx at that time was open 24 hours, and we would just run it to FedEx so that, the network would get it the next day. So one of the shows I was on was that 70s show. And I'm going to tell you that it was originally called Teenage Wasteland. And my job was to just put people on tape. And some great actors came in, and one of them was a new to New York actor named Ashton Kutcher. And he came in and auditioned. And one of the things you do as a casting director is when you send your tape to them, you also type out like everybody and you make notes. And, I obviously directed him and said, pay attention, pay attention. And, at the same time that I'm doing this, they're casting in LA looking for people, and they're finding people in LA. And, immediately they were not, no, he's not what we're looking for, because sometimes you don't know what you're looking for. And again, I'm the one in the room with him, not them. There's no Zooms, there's no Skypes, there's no computers at that time. So it's not like they can do what we're doing here today. And I must have brought this actor in 4 to 5 times to audition. I kept saying, let me bring him in again. Let me bring him in again. And, it just wasn't moving the needle in any way whatsoever. His agent, who's still, or manager, he's still with her, calls me up and says, he's going out to LA, he's getting tested for a pilot. Is there any way you could just ask them, since he's going to be in LA, to read him? I know they're still casting that part. So I did. I asked Meg Simon. And, she's another person I'm very grateful. She threw a lot of work in my direction, and I'm very appreciative of Meg Simon. And she said, sure, we'll see him. And that was it. He went out there, he got the part. I mean, look at him today. I read about him in the marathon this weekend. I mean, he's really made an impact, not only for actors, but also just, somebody who's very altruistic as well. So, it's nice.
And he's a very astute businessman as well.
Yes.
Very
yes.
smart
I've seen him on
in
Shark
that
Tank.
area.
If you were going to ask me, like, what are some of the top films that I am proud of casting, I would definitely say 13 Conversations About One Thing with Matthew McConaughey. That was an amazing film to work on. The Sprecher sisters are wonderful. I spent a lot of time with them. I was invited out with them to the Wisconsin Film Festival. It was just a beautiful story, a beautiful cast. I mean, I could watch that film over and over again. I think it's one of Alan Arkin's best roles. I think that Clea Duvall is amazing in it. Tia Tejada. I mean, it's just such a phenomenal film to work on. So I was very proud of that film. I also cast a film called Adrift in Manhattan, which I also think is an amazing story. That's with Heather Graham and Dominic Chianese and Victor Rasuk. And, it's also a story about lost people. But one of my favorite films I ever cast is called The Five Senses. And it's a Canadian film. And it's about 5 different people or a couple. And each of them is dealing with a different issue within their senses. And somehow their lives intertwine and mix. And that was Jeremy Podeswa's first feature film. And it was a beautiful film to work on. And we got Mary Louise Parker for the lead in that, and Molly Parker, who's a Canadian actress, for the other lead. And, you know, a lot of well-known Canadian actors. And then the Mexican actor was our other lead, the one from Like Water for Chocolate. I forget his name at the top of my head. But, you know, Jeremy has gone on to be one of the top directors doing Got and, you know, all of these amazing shows. And I'm still in touch with him, you know, just honored that I had the chance to work with him so early on in his career.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've worked on some really amazing projects with some, you know,
Yeah.
tremendous talented and casts that have gone on to just, you know, opportunities and, you know, really, I think that a lot of people look at some of my older films and, you know, they see some of the casts that I chose with my team early on and see where their careers have landed them. And, you know, surely, you know, like when I did Electric Children, we originally were going to cast a real younger girl for that. And then, you know, Rebecca Thomas said, you know, I don't feel comfortable with the nature of the material. And I'd had Julia Garner tape, and they went back and they're just like, there she is, Julia Garner. And so, you know, we went to South by Southwest with that film. So it just, you know, sort of just getting those people in and not forgetting about them, because you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Wrapping up here, what would you like to cast that you haven't gotten a chance to cast? I know that's a cliche question, but
That's a very good question. There's certain producers that, you know, we know each other and we've danced around working together, and I haven't had a chance to work with them. I have a lot of films on my plate. I have some huge studio films on my plate. I just want to see the films on my plate moving forward and the team's happy, because then once we make one film, we're going to make the next and the next. You know, listen, I never really went down this big studio path. I've done a few, but, you know, if more studio films came my way, I'd be more than happy for that. I haven't had a chance, you know, I've cast TV series, but I'm not on anything right now. And it'd be great to get my, you know, self on a show. I've been on some shows that we've done some pilots, but they just didn't get picked up. So, you know, I'm hoping that, you know, somebody knocks on my door for something like that, or just, you know, a really great story that is going to move the needle and get nominated. I mean, I've been there before. I've had those films win Sundance and Toronto and Tribeca Film Festival and the Gotham Awards and all that. So, you know, it's very rewarding when you see these projects move forward.
interesting. Do you see any, because you've seen so many films already that a lot of people haven't seen yet, what films do you see coming up that are going to be really big around like Oscar season?
You know, I've seen mostly documentaries, believe it or not, and I'm just starting to see the scripted. I was supposed to go see Causeway last week, but I wasn't feeling well and had to cancel. I'm going to the Fablemans tomorrow, so I'm really looking forward to seeing that. And then because I'm a voter, I'm on like the platforms, so I'm going to just go and try and see like 2-3 films a week is what I'm going to do. So do I have a favorite? Yeah, I don't. Like, there's not a film that has, like, because I haven't seen enough of this year's films. I really want to see that film Bardo. That looks interesting. I want to see that Indian film RRR. That looks amazing.
Yeah, that's gotten a lot of
yes,
kind of just
I
built up through
yes,
the.
yes.
I think it's
So
on Netflix.
yeah. So I just haven't had a chance because I've been busy with other things, but I'm definitely, you know, this is where I start. This is the season where I start to tackle the films, but I'd forgotten. And I'm on the committee for the shorts for BAFTA, and they're due by, I have to vote by, what's today, the 8th, the 10th. So tomorrow morning I'm getting up and I'm watching 8 hours worth of shorts so that I can give it a fair shot. So I'm just going to do it. Maybe tonight I'll watch some of them when I get home. But I've seen a lot already this year. I'm looking forward to what's next.
Do you have a beginning of the day routine?
Coffee.
Coffee? Do you have a nighttime routine?
My coffee. No, because every night's different. Just wash my face before I go to bed. That's really my one caveat, that I won't go to bed with makeup on.
Do you meditate?
I don't want to say I meditate. That's not really my thing because I'm a bit hyper. I want to
Mm,
say that I definitely will. I have a couple of favorite songs that will sort of melt, chill and, light a candle. When I'm stressed, I'll take a walk. I am, I'm not like somebody, I'm very driven. So I don't really need like a lot of pushes or anything.
yeah.
I think like anybody else, I go along and I think, my biggest victim is when I don't get a good night's sleep. And other than that, you roll
Same
on.
here. Same here. The
Yeah.
sleep is so important, but sometimes,
Right.
yeah,
That
it's
could,
hard to it's hard to shut down sometimes, you just
right, right. Or I just,
you
what
do.
happens for me is I wake up too early and, I will, like I said, I am the type of person, if I wake up at 6, I'll get on the computer and do the work. Like if I know there's things that need to get done. I'm a very good morning worker. Like I get my
Mm,
best work done from like 7 to 10 o'clock. And then sometimes I feel like, oh, the day's over already, but it's not, it's just beginning because my staff gets online at 10, but I get
yeah.
everything done and prepped.
Wow. What are you reading right now?
I'm in the middle of like 3 books and I'm not anywhere near them,
Oh,
so
really?
I like download them and then I start them and then I read a script. What am I reading? I'm like a script a day. That's really the truth. When you're reading a script a day, it doesn't always give you a chance to take a look, and finish the book. And
Yeah.
there's one book I've been reading, but it's a film that's come out already and I'm like, I'll just go, I'll watch the film. That's it. I'm not going to have time because when you're listen, I'm speaking with you for an hour and I'm not looking at my internet. I turned my phone off so I wasn't distracted. I don't know what scripts, people send you a script a day. And so you just want to jam and read it as quickly as possible. If they're, quickly hiring a casting director, other projects are sort of on the slow burn and you don't have to, or you tell them I'll read it over the weekend or something like that. Like I said, I'm a morning person, so I'm a better morning reader. I also work in the horror genre a lot. That's a space that I'm very comfortable and familiar with, but I will surely tell you I read them in the morning and not at night because I don't want to have visions of these characters that I've cast.
Yeah.
And I've cast some fairly disturbing horror films and it's a job and it's fine.
Yeah.
And I've sat through them at the premieres and the screenings and sometimes you close your eyes and whatnot, but right now it's just script reading time.
Yeah. What are you listening to right now?
What am I listening to right
Yeah.
now?
Anything
I feel
specific?
like it's more about just binging shows for me. Like Bad Sisters is my new show I'm binging and
Yeah.
stuff. That's really where my head is at right now, just because it's award season and there's shows I want to watch and films I want to see. And that's, where I'm at. Like I still have a couple more episodes of the last season of Ozark to get through. There are things I haven't had a chance to do what I need to do. I do a lot of commercials and campaigns, and those are very demanding and they move very quickly. And I am sometimes that can take up hours for you. You're just on your computer making sure that like I'm doing a big one right now. It's all models, and
Yeah.
I'm dealing with all the modeling agencies, and it's different. It's different. It's
It's a
just a
different
different
game.
path, right? But the client's a well-known client. They want models, and they want to, these have to be people that they can look and say, oh, they were in that ad and this ad, So
Yeah.
that's what a lot of time is spent doing.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, thank you so much for doing this. This has been great.
Yeah,
Um,
thank you.
how can
Appreciate it.
how can people reach you?
If you go on my website, you'll see after looking at my site and enjoying it, and it links you to my IMDb Pro if you have that. But my email address is on my website, and feel free to send an email if you heard something you liked or want to send me your headshot. I apologize if I don't get back to you, but I know you're out there, and that's all it takes. So thank you so
Yeah.
much for having me. I really enjoyed being here today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Terrific. I will see you again soon.
Okay, that about does it for my episode with Adrienne Stern. I hope you enjoyed it. I suggest you check out her website, adriennestern.com. As always, thank you for listening. Please like, share, or subscribe. And I will see you next time on the DMF